Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. Tonight is another IG Live. Interactions needed. Questions can be asked. You can jump in whenever you want and leave a question. I will take the questions on. So it's going to be a wonderful night. Hi, Ali and Donato. You guys are already here. That's so nice to see you. I was just going to say that, yes, it's going to be one of those nights. I'm happy to see you guys are here early. It's a nice night. I went for a walk, so I'm cold. So I have my light. It's a light coat. It's an indoor-outdoor coat. So anyway, I'm not taking it out because I'm still freezing. So we're going to get right onto it. So tonight, soreness is less painful than regret. We know that. We know soreness, right? So you think it is difficult what you're going through right now. So you can as well stop crying and complaining about it because it's not going to change. You're sore and it hurts all over. You have a big headache and you're going to give up. That's your determination. You're throwing in the towel. So really, this is your answer to everything, right? Really, this is your answer to this. You have been working at it and you cannot succeed. It is not happening for you. So what do you want to do? You know for sure that the other guy had it easy. That's what you say. Everybody else has it easier than you. Well, let me tell you about a man who had no intention to do what he ended up having to do. He had to create something. And that man decided he wanted to do something a little bit different. He was working on something. He didn't know they were going to change his life. He had no idea. And he was not happy about it. He was in his zone doing something he really liked. And that man was so contented within himself. He was an unusual looking man. He was not big in stature. Actually, he was quite tiny from what we can see. We don't know for sure because they never told us about his height or his gait. So I wonder who that man was. You know what? I do too, Donato. I will tell you who that man was. It's really interesting. You really need to listen to this. And actually, because soreness is a lot harder and it hurts more than the moment you were in, right? So you're sore and it's really hurting. You're trying and you're not succeeding. You do this and you do that and you're still not succeeding. So what do? What can you do? In some cases, we hold on and we say we'll keep going. And then there are others who don't. And of course, they find out later on that actually the regret of not doing what they wanted to do was a lot harder than the soreness they were experiencing at the time. So this man was actually a sculptor. He was working on a marble thing, right? So I'm going to talk to you about him a little bit and bring him out because we need to see him as he really is. So that's the thing about this man. He was absolutely amazing and there was nothing we could do for him except watch him do his thing. So I will tell you a little bit about him. So I'm going to put it on something to show you a little bit better because I think it would be much better if I brought it out in a different way tonight. So there we go. And I'm going to start with him. So this man didn't understand anything that was being done to him. He really didn't understand. I read about him and I read about him again. And he didn't get it. He didn't understand what they were doing to him. He didn't know. He didn't feel it. He didn't understand it. So soreness, they say, is less painful than regret. And you're having a difficult time right now. And the thing I would say to you is that you must stop crying. You cannot keep there saying that it's hard, it's difficult, I'm not doing it. So Donato says, been there, done that, and never stop. So, but Donato, people throw in the towel. Really, this is what the answer usually are. You have been working at it and you cannot get it to go your way. So what do some people do? They throw the towel away. You know for sure that guy had it easy. That's what you said, and we keep telling you, no, he didn't have it easy. Well, let me tell you about this man who had no intention to create. He wasn't creating. Actually, he was working on a marble tomb for a king, and he was a sculptor. You know the soreness he went through to paint the Sistine Chapel. He was not on his back as they depicted in the movie. He painted standing up on scaffolds that he and his assistant built out of wood, and they fastened it to the walls of the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo balked at the idea of painting because he considered himself a painter. And he said, no, I'm a sculptor. At that time, he was hard at work sculpting the king's tomb. But the Pope Julius insisted that he paint. So Michelangelo began to work on the famous fresco ceiling in 1508. He worked at it for 4 years. In 1509, he wrote to his friend Giovanni di Pistoia, and while the author was painting the vault of the Sistine Chapel, this is what he wrote. He said, have already grown a goiter from this torture, hunch up here like a cat in Lombardy for anywhere else where the stagnant waters poison. My stomach squashed under my chin, my breast pointing at heaven. My brains crushed in a casket, my breast twists like a harpies. My brush above me all the time dribbles paint on my face, makes a fine floor for droppings. My hunches are grinding into my guts. My poor ass strains to work as a counterweight. Every gesture I make is blind and aimless. My skin hangs loose below me. My spines are knotted from folding over itself. I've been taught as a Syrian bow because I'm stuck like this. My thoughts are crazy, perfidious stripe. Anyone shots badly through a crooked bowpipe. My painting is dead, Giovanni. Defend me. For me, defend it. Protect my honor. I am not in the right place. I am not a painter. He pleaded with his friend. This was the agony he went through. But look at the legacy he left behind. He lived long enough to enjoy his work. He died in February 18, 1564. You know this guy, right? Movies have been made about him. Yes, great big movies. The famous one, the most famous one, The Agony and the Ecstasy. It depicted his agony and it also brought ecstasy at the end. This is what it's all about. The soreness is the agony, and the unfinished product is the unrelenting pain which you take to your grave if you don't go on. Which one would you rather have? The agony before the ecstasy or the pain of regret? We don't know. We have to keep doing it. I am here tonight to inspire you to take action and stick with it. Ecstasy is 1,000,000 times more pleasurable than soreness. Soreness will only last until you succeed, and the pain will be forgotten when you reach the finish line. I know how to help you and get over your soreness. No, because the pain of regret is much more worse. So I'm here tonight to inspire you to stay on course and do not stop. Get yourself an accountability coach to help you stay accountability to your dreams, your goals, and yourself. Because in this day, if you don't do what you want to do, if you don't work on the things you need to work, if you don't continue and hold on, when everything in you is telling you to stop, when every nerve and sinew has been used to the point they cannot go any further, you have to wish on them and say, take me one more step. If that man had just stopped, when he talked about himself, he's writing to his friend, and he talks about how his body, he's standing on scaffolding, and he said, I'm painting, and my brush is dropping paint all over my face. I cannot see. I am blind. I'm just doing it. And you think we have pain? We have pain when we have computers, when we have Google, when we have everywhere. He had to build his own scaffolding. I know about scaffolding. My dad was an architect and a construction engineer, so I know all about that. I know what it was to build scaffolding to put churches in the islands. That's what he did. So I know how difficult it was until they found a way to use aluminum pipes to build them. So they had to build as of wood, and I'm sure the walls of the Sistine Chapel was made out of cement, and they had to put it on there and stand on this day in and day out. It took them 4 years, but they never gave up. All he wanted to do was to be a sculptor. And when he opened up, if you look at the Sistine Chapel today, even a brain, he somehow, in his ecstasy of pain, he was able to find the brain, the human brain, and put it in there. Then he has the finger of God pointing at Adam. And then there is one that depicts the face of God. When you look at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in the vault, if you don't shiver, you're not human. If you don't feel it, you're certainly not human. If you don't understand it and feel the blood and the tinkling in your body and the nervousness flowing through, you're not human. And to go back, he was not a painter. He sculpted for a living. And he didn't know. He said, I don't even know how to use fresco. That was the kind of paint at the time. I know nothing about this. But in those days, as you know, the church was always in charge. And the Pope demanded that he did it. Pope Julius said, you have to paint that Sistine Chapel. When he got into it, he didn't finish it all together. And they said, we need it, so you have to move to something else. And he had gotten so into it that he was angry. And he said, I need to finish it. And they said, no, we have to show it as it is. But he did finish it. The point is that he finished it 4 years later, and that would have been 15, 12, or 13. But he lived until 64, and he went on to do David, because they tell you Michelangelo's David, and then there were so many other things he did. He did marble was his thing. And every time he got a break and he wanted his sense back, he used to go and work on that tomb that he had started working on. But he never gave up. And he talked about his pain. So who are we to start a project and give up? You cannot give up. If you believe in it, if you have faith in it, you have to keep doing it. Nobody is going to come to help you to do it. It's your baby, it's your project. So Donatus, at 17th century, known as the Renaissance, was one of the greatest times in history of mankind. For sure it was. The works these people, but they didn't only do the work like that. They did the work with pain. The work was done with a lot of pain. It wasn't easy for them, but they never stopped. They just kept going. So when you read what he said, when he wrote to his friend, I wrote it down so I could, if I had to say it again. And he said, you know, when he said, you know that he was in a lot of pain. And he didn't want to paint. He was so amazing. He wrote and he said to his friend Giovanni, while he was up there, I've already grown a goiter. He's telling you what is happening to me 1 year into it. From the torture, hunched up. So he's like that all the time. In the movie, they showed him on his back, but he was never on his back. So when we want to go give up, we have to think of these great Renaissance painters of the time, like Michelangelo. When he said, I've already grown a goiter from this torture, hunch up here like a cat in Lombardy, for anywhere else where the stagnant water is poison. That's how bad he felt. My stomach is squashed under my chin. My beard's pointing at heaven. My brain's crushed in a casket. My breast twists like a harper's. My brush above me all the time dribbles paint on my face, makes a fine floor for droppings. My hunches are grinding into my gut. My poor ass strains to work as a counterweight. Every gesture I make is blind and aimless. He was in pain, but he didn't stop. My skin hangs loose below me. My spine is all knotted from folding over itself. I am bent, taut as a Syrian bow. Because I am stuck like this, my thoughts are crazy. Perfidious strike, anyone shoots badly through a crooked blue pipe. So he felt the pain. Then he said, my painting is dead. Defend it for me. Giovanni, protect my honor. I am not in the right place. I am not a painter. He was a sculptor, but because the church had so much power in those days, he couldn't say no. Had he maybe said no, he would maybe be killed or just died mysteriously. That was how vicious it was in those days. But he did it, and he held on. And we talk about soreness. We talk about how difficult things are. Things are not half as difficult for us as they were for these people in those times. But again, look at the work he produced. Look at the work that he sent there. So if you guys have anything you want to say, Donato has said a few things. I'm waiting to hear what anybody else has to say, any questions you want to ask, because I think it is a wonderful comparison or alignment to see when we think life is difficult or what we're doing is very hard, and then we come across somebody like that. So that is what I wanted to bring out tonight, is to show you that what is difficult can still be done properly. What is difficult can hurt. But again, as I said, the pain, the soreness is not as bad as the regret. You don't do it, and because you were sore, because you stopped, because you gave up. And now, the lesson that, as Donato said, he taught us all about dedication and persistence. That is what, especially not having the knowledge. He said, I don't know how to paint a fresco. I don't paint. I am a sculptor. I can carve marble. But the Pope demanded of him, go paint my Sistine Chapel. And you know, in those days, those popes were like God. And then when he cried to his friend and he said what was going on in his body, you think that man had soreness? It was so hard for him that they called him, they said it was the agony, and then the ecstasy came. So when we are trying our little trials and tribulation on this earth, right in this moment, we must remember these great Renaissance people that came before us and how hard and difficult they were. But look at the work. It was only in the 80s and the 90s that it required some work. Hundreds, centuries later, they had to go back and retouch it. But can you imagine the fingers of these people trying to retouch such great things? You know how I saw a little bit of that? When they redid St. Michael's Cathedral in Toronto, and I saw the father and the daughter up there painting back ceiling that was peeling off, and you should see it today. It is absolutely stunning. So he was eating some cannolis that helped him paint those great masterpieces. I don't know what he was doing, Donato. I really don't know. All I know is that he left us with a legacy that is awesome. So what you have, we have to remember when we're struggling to get to where we want to go, and it's hard and it's difficult, turn back just for a moment. Go visit one of these great places and see and learn the history. See what happens. They chose him. The man is working in stone, marble, and the Pope in all his madness, or he was inspired by the Holy Spirit, I don't know. Decide, Michelangelo over there, that poor sculpture, he's the one I want to paint the Sistine Chapel. And you know why it is called the Sistine Chapel, right? Because the one who built it in 1470, his name was Sirius, and Sirius the Fourth. He was the Pope, he was the Pope at that time. And then, so they let him build it. He built it in 1470. And then Julius came and wanted it painted. And Donato was the guy they chose to do it. Michelangelo. I said Donato because you're doing all these things. The legacy is worth all the suffering and pain. It certainly is. And so that was something, I hope you guys got something out of it. And I hope you realize the soreness is certainly not as painful as the regret of not doing something. Because in the end, he got the ecstasy. He went through the agony and he came out on the other side of the ecstasy. And the most astonishing thing for those days is that he was able to live for another 50 years or more and enjoyed it. So I think that was a wonderful thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tonight. And if anybody had any questions, you could put it up. And Donato is happy with it, and I know Yoko is, and Ali, thanks for staying up all the way from Iran, and Rai, thanks for dropping in. I didn't think you would have had the time to see it tonight. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And if you have any questions, I'll take it. If you have any statements you want to make, I can look at it. Otherwise, it's going to be adios. The Rosie, beautiful scarf, Tessa. Thanks, Rosie. I'm glad you like my crazy scarf. You know I make those, eh? I just get the fabric and I create. So that's one of the things I enjoy doing. How do you choose that? How do you choose the scarf? When I walk into a fabric store, guys, you know how the same way I write, right? I look at a word, 2 words, and I create. I don't see a picture. So most people will walk, and you see people in the fabric stores, and they have a pattern in their hand, and they're walking around the stores looking for the fabric that they told them to use, or they're looking for the design. I don't do that. I walk into the fabric store, and I see a piece of fabric, and I just know what to do with it. It's just one of those things. Tell us how this story pertains on your life. On my life, how this story pertains to my life. Rosie, if you missed it, if you weren't there in time for it, is that we're talking about Michelangelo and painting of the Sistine Chapel in Rome, and how he wasn't a painter, and the Pope made him paint. So he had to do it. He was a sculptor. At the time he was sculpting a tomb. And his famous work is David's, they call it Michelangelo David. So David from the Bible, he sculpted something. So he wasn't very religious either. He really didn't have anything to do with church. So one of the things, I'm going to ask tell us how it sort of pertains to your life. This story pertains to my life in that way that I don't know how not to try. I don't know how not to stop. As I said to you, when you're inspired by the Holy Spirit, you cannot stop. If you know you have something coming to you and you have to do it, you must follow it. If you don't follow the urgings of what comes to you to do, you can end up being very sick. You can end up actually losing your mind. So for me in my life, I look at a difficult situation and I decide. I don't do much without prayer. I don't do much without asking for direction. There is very, very little. I actually, one of my daughters, if we go for a walk with her, she stops when she gets to a crossroad road to say, Mom, which way should we go? So this is what I do. I wake up in the morning and the first thing is gratitude and thankfulness and that and this. And I ask God every day, show me what you want me to do today. Show me who you want me to inspire, who you want me to serve, who you want me to empower, who you want me to encourage, who you want me to educate, pump, accelerate, enlighten. So my list goes on, and I stand at the window looking outside and I ask him for that. And then I ask him to show me what I can do for my high self. So when I'm faced with a difficult moment, like I told you guys the story in 1997 when the car got stolen. The furnace broke down. My husband had cancer. I had to have an operation and 3 kids in high school. All in 1 month. All had to be done between August and September. So I couldn't crack. I didn't know what to crack, but I knew where to go. So I went to God. I went and I prayed. And when I pray, I don't always use the Bible. Because I was taught to pray from your heart. I was told prayer is a heart-to-heart talk with God. So I just went down on my knees and I just say, what? No. I say, okay, so that is where we are. So how are we going to fix it? My we wasn't my husband and the children. My we was me and you, God. Because you said, I will supply all your needs. You told me and you cannot lie. And I always believe it. Because although I was raised completely Catholic, my mother taught us the Bible. And the school I went to, those nuns made us read the Bible. We had no choice. That was part of our everyday life. So in the Bible, he says that look at the lilies of the field, how wonderful and beautiful they are. And Solomon, in all his glory, couldn't be like him. Then he went further, and then he said, if you ask your father, your earthly father, for bread, he will not give you a snake. Why would I do that to you? So I said, oh, well, then you empower me to come after you. So, and I prayed like that. I know my cousin and my girlfriend were just amazed. They were angry. How can you talk to God like that? I said, well, I'm human, and when he was human, he was angry. What's your point? And that's how I said, you promised me you'll help me, so now is your turn. Show me what you've got. We need to solve this problem. And I told you guys about it this week. So that is where I go. And that is maybe where when Michelangelo was faced with that, he didn't have a choice, did he? Michelangelo didn't have a choice. As I said, in those days, the church was the power. They were even more powerful than the government. They were more powerful than the senators of Rome. They could dictate who die and who live by not ever leaving their home. So here he is carving a tomb for a king out of marble. And Pope Julius said to him, I want you to paint the Fresno painting on the top of the Sistine Chapel. As he said, I am not a painter. And those of you who didn't hear what he said when he wrote to Giovanni, I know I love reading it, I shouldn't read it again. When he wrote to Giovanni, he said to his friend Giovanni, he started in 1508. In 1509, he was so hurt, he was in so much pain. 1 year later, he said, I have already grown a goiter from this torture, hunched up here like a cat in Lombardy, or anywhere else where the stagnant water is poison. My stomach is squashed under my chin, my beard's pointing at heaven. My brain's crushed in a casket. My breast is twisted like a harper's. My brush dribbles paint or so on my face every time. It makes the floor for droppings. My hunches are grinding into my guts. My poor ass strains to work, and as a counterweight, every gesture I make is blind and aimless. My skin hangs loose below me. My spine's all knotted from folding over itself. I'm bent as taut as a Syrian bow because I'm stuck like this. My thoughts are crazy. My perfidious tribe, anyone can shoot a brandy through a crooked bone. My painting is dead. So he talked about it and he said to his friend to take care of my painting. I cannot do it. I don't know it. He said, Giovanni, I am not a painter. I am a sculptor. I am in the wrong place. He had no choice. He's either the agony now or the ecstasy later. So when life is difficult like it was for me in 97, it was the agony. It was, we had to go through it. We didn't have a choice. And to be honest with you, if you ask me the detail of how I went through it, I couldn't tell you. I cannot remember. And this is not the first time that God has stepped in like that in my life. I remembered when Jillian was about 3, 4, and Vanessa was just a baby. And it was winter, I was coming home, and I had them in a stroller. And when I went across the bridge, the trucks were just blowing salt and snow in their faces, and I remember just saying, oh God, help me. That's all I can remember saying. The next thing, I found myself at the door of the house with the key in the lock. And to this day, I have no recollection of, and I didn't have it the next day either, how I got from the top of this bridge, down a little gully, into the front of the house. No idea. So I know what it is when you're facing that wall. And I have a lot of faith and I have a lot of belief. And I don't care whatever happens. The one thing I know for sure, God must supply my needs. He's not going to, he cannot. He made a promise. And because I am such a troublesome woman, he looks at me and I have told him, I said to him, if the woman that was having that issue with blood, you thought she held your coat, and you felt it, guess what? I am not ever letting go of you. So if I were you, I would turn back and help me. And my mother said, you are crazy. But, so Donato, you asked a question, you got an answer. So that is how I saw Michelangelo's David, and Michelangelo being forced to do something he wasn't trained to do. But if he didn't go through the pain and the agony and the ecstasy, and what people think, the movie shows him lying on his back. He didn't. He stood up on scaffolding. And that's how he did it. So I hope you guys got it. So it's with my life. It's holding on and doing the best you can and continue going and believe. You have to believe. If you don't believe in this, you'll believe in something else. Many people are questioning my situation now, that I have no time for anything and I'm busy doing these lives. But you know, this is the plate I am being served right now. So this is what God has decided He's putting on my plate. I didn't ask for this. I was very happy just writing my morning blessings to my children and my adopted children and friends and people I mentored. And then one day He decided, you have to do more. You have to reach more. So here I am. So I don't know what we have for tomorrow morning's morning blessings. I have no idea. I write them every time, weeks in advance. So I'll see you guys tomorrow at 8, those of you who can make it. I do the same thing over at 9 because I think I'm going to quit Facebook. Facebook has temper. It's like, it's never the same. And I'll maybe do it on IG Live. So thank you everybody for coming. Sending you light and love on this wonderful Tuesday evening. Tomorrow is going to be 11 degrees in Toronto. Whoa, summer is in the air. Spring is coming. Get ready, guys. So enjoy the evening. And I hope whatever you do tonight, you do it knowing that if it's difficult for you today, hold on. Because soon the ecstasy will show up. This agony comes first. The soreness now is not as painful as the regret if you don't keep trying. So have a wonderful evening. And thank you everybody for dropping in. And all of you have a wonderful time. Talk to you guys later. Bye.